Let's get sweaty.
Hello and welcome to the Shenmue Dojo show. We're back once again to recap the latest episode of Shenmue the Animation. That episode being the third of the show run, called Yin-Yang. We're going to try our best over the course of the following hour or so to provide a full recap, whilst also provoking thoughts, discussion and analysis. Ooh, fancy. Like always, I am James Brown. Yes, it's always me. And as always, I'm joined by Matthew. Can I squeeze another exhaust somewhere on this computer, although it has the power of one? I don't think it quite sounds like a jumbo jet yet. Oliver, how's it going, dude?
Yeah, good, man. How are you?
Oh, good, man. Just same as usual. Just can't keep up with life these days. You know, every week's just flying by, isn't it?
It's hectic at the moment, isn't it? It's
crazy.
really hectic.
You know, what actually are video games? I don't ever get time to play them. And we're also looking to launch something exciting. Maybe by the time you hear this episode, so
yeah,
it's just relentless in it, just the way we like it.
Yeah, busy.
Yeah, and like I say, we're also cruising along rather nicely with the anime series now, man.
Yeah, I mean, 3 episodes in now, and you know, it's bubbling along at a really quick pace, nice pace, but a consistent quality. If anybody, I say this every week, if anybody's unsure of seeing this thing, you've got nothing to worry about as a Shenmue fan. It is honestly top notch, does the source material justice. You're missing out. Get involved.
I'd be surprised, mate, if someone's listening to this over watching the anime.
You'd hope so, but you never know.
Maybe, I suppose if they're not like affording the subscription or whatever to Crunchyroll and stuff, and they're listening to our analysis of the episodes, possibly.
Possibly. I mean, you need to be watching these if you can. I mean, you can get Crunchyroll codes off of various key seller sites for not very much as well. So if you can get hold of one, then just go ahead and watch it because they're just brilliant episodes.
Yeah. Don't know how dodgy that is, Matt, but just log on to Crunchyroll and just buy a subscription. Why not? But the anime analysis trio wouldn't be complete without introducing the brains of the operation, the note-making wizard, Titch Life. How's it going, Titch?
Hello. Yeah, the loose word being brains there.
I'd say you are, especially if you read through some of your intense note-making.
Oh, I apologise for the length of them, but I suppose if the anime episode was boring, I wouldn't have much to write about. So yeah, the more notes, the better. To be honest.
Yeah.
Just pain for us to get through it all, but yeah, for good reason.
Yeah, very true. I mean, without your notes, I'd question how good these episode recaps would be, relying on my tumbleweed of a memory.
Oh, I forget everything.
Likewise.
Well, I don't think yours would be too shabby, Matt.
Well, you'd be surprised. I'd forget stuff. I just would.
But yeah, really good. Yeah, thanks again for all your hard work.
Oh, you too. Thank you.
Begin to tackle another Shenmue the Animation episode. But before we do that, though, Matt, do you fancy giving us a quick whistle-stop tour of the events leading up to episode 3 so far?
This will be quick, and it will be based off of my memory, so hopefully I do it justice. So, episode 2 kicked off with Ryo getting the letter from Yuandazu. He had a flashback to the dojo just after the Chai fight. He couldn't read it, it's in Chinese. So the show opens up very quickly with a flashback of the dojo fight while being killed, and then Landy turning around to Ryo and saying, "What do you really know about your father's past? And if you pursue this, I will ensure you suffer the same fate as your father." And then it cuts to Ryo waking up from what seemingly was a dream, but it gives Landy some nice context. After that, Ryo gets up and he's like, right, I need to go and get this letter translated. So he heads off to Dobuita and is not successful in any way, shape or form. Bumps into Nozomi, who says, well, I might know somebody who can help. You're rubbish asking for help. Away we go. Ryo then makes the link. Actually, from the first episode, Leo-san said, oh, harbour workers, etc. They go out drinking in Dobuita. So Ryo goes, all right, I'll have a think. Ends up in bar Yokozuka and has a quick chat with the bartender there who says, right, go to Heartbeats and you'll find who you're looking for. goes to Heartbeats, beats up Tony and Smith, trashes the bar in true game fashion, and gets information about a Charlie, who we all know and love from the games. He then goes back on his detective ways, hunting down Charlie, ends up at the tattoo parlor, who tips Charlie off that somebody is looking for him. And Charlie's talking about, he thinks he's part of the Chen gang. Obviously, we know that's not the case, but it's a good little bit of context there. And it then cuts to a scene where Rio finds Gawain, who's had his football stolen by Charlie and his thugs, goes off, beats the thugs up, Charlie legs it, and there we go. Rio's back to square one. Then cuts to another scene where you're outside the arcade. Wang can't translate the letter, and it's just not working for Rio. He then sees Yagamashi, who turns around and says, look, why are you seeking revenge? Why are you wanting to know about your father? Sort of cuts Rio off very bluntly and isn't interested in it. It then sort of moves on in the story to Rio doing a lot of hunting around, not really getting anywhere. And it cuts to a little flashback scene where Rio and his father, and Rio's reading this, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but this anime manga type thing. And his father's trying to get him to read some martial arts books, but he's just not interested. So he legs it. So we cut after this scene. Rio is, again, doing some investigation around Charlie because he doesn't know who he is. And he bumps into Tony and Smith in the arcade, who are like, oh, yeah, we know him. And they lure him off to go and meet Charlie in what looks like the abandoned cinema. And they have a big fight showdown. Rio takes out the goons, takes out Charlie. Charlie gives him some information about Landy and says, look, this guy's dangerous. You don't know what you're getting yourself in for. Yagamashi-san sees all of this and sort of makes a conscious decision to actually try and help Rio a bit. So he tells Rio, go to Rushia China shop. The lady there can translate the letter. And he teaches him the double blow move. And it also cuts at the end to a scene of Shenhua on the cliff with the eagle. And one bit I did miss at the start was Shenhua going through Bailu Village, talking to her Shenmue 3 character friends, which was a nice little touch. So that is a very quick whistle-stop tour of Shenmue Anime Episode 2 from memory.
Quality, mate. So you've condensed the story down from 23 minutes into about a minute and a half. So
Well, that's good.
Good
That's
job.
good.
Yeah, well done. So let's jump straight into it, guys. We're going to start with the synopsis like we usually do. And like usual, we've got full spoilers ahead for both this particular anime episode, and we'll probably mention some bits of the game at some point as well, I assume. So this is episode 3, Yin-Yang, and it was originally aired on February the 20th, 2022. So in this episode, Rio finally finds a person who can read Yuandazu's letter, which said, find Master Chen for help. Rio finds Master Chen and asks him about Landy, the man who murdered his father. Rio learns that Landy is a high-ranked member of a Chinese underground organisation, Qi You Men, and is after the two mirrors. So, I think I was with Titch last week, so this week I'll go to Matt first. What did you make of this episode overall?
I really enjoyed it. I would say it's probably not quite as good as episode 2, but that's just my personal opinion. I think it followed the games very tightly this time, giving a lot of extra context to Master Chen, Guizhang, and sort of the things that are going on around there. We got some really nice visuals of the lore around sort of the dragon and the phoenix and the mirrors. Yeah, it's a really damn good episode, actually. And shows a lot of respect for the source material. So I'm a very happy man after watching that. There's a lot of little Easter eggs in there as well that we will probably pick up on as we talk about it as well.
Yeah, it was very lore intense, I thought. And I think it's one of those that at the time it was a lot to take in, especially while we're doing it on stream with the Japanese dub as well. It's hard, reading the subtitles and being aware of everything that's going on. So I think it's going to take another watch, at least from myself, to really, really get all the nitty-gritty of and really digest everything that we saw there. And I think it could have the potential actually being my favourite. It's going to take another watch, I reckon, to top last week's, in my opinion. But you, Titch, was that another enjoyable one for you too?
Yeah, I totally agree. I'd say that was my favourite one so far, because the pace of the it's just I'm trying to get used to the pace of the anime, because it's just a completely different pace compared to the game. It's just so fast, and I don't want to say I'm an expert at the games, but when you're so familiar with the story and what happens and what comes next, and you can't help but do that comparison as you're watching. But it is nice to have a bit of both worlds, really. Like the anime is keeping everything going at sort of full pelt, and yeah, it's really exciting. I've really enjoyed it again.
Yeah, and really, from what we got a lot of like story details and history and lore and new scenes that we're going to get into in a little bit. But overall, it's one of the more like the less action kind of based episodes. It was a lot more storytelling, which I mean they're going to have to do at some point, like really delve deep into the Shenmue story and lore and stuff. So yeah, I agree. I think I could see it being potentially my favourite. But if you had to rank the first 3 episodes so far, Titch, obviously they're going to be 10 out of 10s, I'd assume, but if you could put them in an order so far, do you reckon?
Oh, I suppose in, well, not a number ranking, but in order of like first, second, third.
Yeah.
I think it'll be just, working backwards. So 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
Yep.
So 2, 3, 1 for you, Matt, or?
Yeah, 2, 3, 1. 2 just shades out episode 3 for me.
Okay. Good stuff, guys. Beautiful. So let's get into the actual episode now. So episode 3 starts with an opening scene in Bailey Village. So it's another one of those moments where it is the anime taking liberties with the story here, and we're introducing a little bit more of Shenhua's world, ongoing to the plot that's happening in Ryo's side of things at the same sort of time. So back in Bailey Village, Shenhua's walking down a familiar path leading into the village centre. So you've got the lovely backdrop of the bell tower and the village there, and also a little faithful little goat or lamb or whatever is roaming alongside her. She's actually reciting the prophecy again, which we picked up on last episode when we were doing the analysis. We picked up that it's like 4 times she's already doing it, and she's doing it again now. But even though it's like a lot, she's doing it kind of purposely in this episode. Like she's really, really questioning the roots of this prophecy, I think. Again, it's just another moment to reiterate that to the viewer, that this is a major factor of the story of Shenmue. And she passes Ming-Yang Lei, who she doesn't actually notice because she's so busy pondering who he is in the prophecy. So again, this guy's getting proper friend-zoned already. She didn't even notice him. But he does actually catches up to her at the well, very familiar setting of the village square with the well in the middle. And they talk about who he is and obviously the prophecy as a whole. And Ming-Yang Lei brushes it off in an arrogant manner, attempting and failing to impress Shenhua. And actually, it's quite funny that already he seems to be getting a little bit jealous of who this guy is in an ancient Chinese poem. So he's got a bit of trust issues, I think, going on, and these jealousy things kicking in already, and obviously doesn't know what's going to happen in the future. So that'd be interesting to see how the anime actually takes that once Ryo meets up with Shenhua, which isn't probably going to be in this season, but we'll see how that works out. So he tries to recover himself by changing the subject. This is Ming-Yang, and he's now asking her to attend a night festival in a nearby village with him. So this is interesting. This is setting up something that we're expecting to see potentially in a future episode, this night festival that's going to happen in Bailey Village, or a nearby village anyway. And then it pans to the sky, that eastern sort of sky again, and we don't actually hear the answer from Shenhua, but we would assume that by them mentioning this is something that's going to factor into a future episode, right?
Yeah, I think that's the way it's going to look and the way they're playing it. I don't know if we'll get a huge amount with it, but we can see how things roll in that respect. I've said this on stream. I think the prophecies possibly for us as old school fans is being slightly overdone, but I can understand why they're doing it and how they're doing it. So it's I can see it. I can see why people are a bit divided over it. I can tolerate it, but I can also sort of see where both camps lie on that one. But I love these Shenhua scenes in Bailey Village. The context around her is fantastic, and it's just setting everything up for the eventually when they meet, and they're questioning. Both of them are questioning something, aren't they? Spags was saying this in the stream chat. She's questioning the prophecy. Ryo's questioning his father. So there's a common link. There's a common goal there. So when they do meet, they've got that common directive, if you like.
Yeah, and it's just so nice that they're respecting the source material of Shenmue 3, aren't they? The Bailey Village setting, the characters as well. So after the scene, we skip straight to the title sequence. Amazing song. Everyone knows it off by heart by now, I thought. And if you've seen that Phantom Riverstone translated version, you're probably singing along as well. So, Matt, if you want to take it from here, probably take the next couple of points, actually.
Yeah, no worries. So we cut to a scene at Bar MJQ and Dobuita. It's quite sort of dark and dingily presented, actually. And sort of the camera pans over to we know who's Terry, sat in a corner booth. So this is the first time we see him, and actually it's the first time we see him outside the harbour anywhere in Shenmue. So it's interesting that he's branching out. Obviously, he knows Charlie, so that could be a reason as well. His henchmen are talking about Charlie and someone who beat him up, basically, and it wasn't actually the Chens. So Terry's like, oh, okay, he's interested by it. He's saying, well, who's got the balls to stand up to us besides the Chens? And they're referring to Rio. So it's planting those sort of seeds that the Mad Angels are aware of Rio without actually knowing too much about him at this point. So there's clearly more to find out there. It's a nice touch of just getting a bit more context to Terry's character, because obviously it's building towards a 70-man battle and we all know what happens there.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing Terry out of the harbour, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, it is. And again, this is what the anime does really, really well. It gives us a bit more context that the games couldn't, and that's great. I'm all for it. It works really well for new people, and it works really well for old players and old fans like us who talk about this shit. So
that's the thing you've got when you're playing the game. It's literally the perspective of Rio in it. You are Rio Hazuki, so you're seeing everything happen unfolding from his vision, his eyes. There's very few moments where it's showing something happening in a different location at that time, whereas, like you say, the anime is great for that, because we're seeing scenes happening, we're seeing conversations happening between other characters, setting up things that happen in the story in the future that are going to affect Rio. So yeah, I absolutely love that, because like you say, it keeps us on our toes. It makes the episodes exciting to see how they're going to adapt what we know and love already, and what else they're going to add into that as well, which is awesome.
Yeah, and there's a lot. I think this is just going to be a reoccurring theme, I think, through the anime. So to bring it on, indeed. So we move then on into sort of Debuita Street, and Rio is walking down the street. I love the fact they just sort of show him walking around Debuita. It's a little nod to the games. Obviously, you do a lot of that in Shenmue 1. And he's thinking about the pottery store that Yagamishi mentioned to him in the previous episode. So again, they're redoing this little flashback of the previous episode, which I like. It's just a quick refresher. What happened? Here you go. Boom. Off we go. So it's quite clever. I don't know if all animes do it this way, but I quite like the fact they're doing it here. He reaches the pottery store. It's closed, but he is then approached by Gawain, the young boy who retrieved the soccer ball for. Unfortunately, didn't boot it in Charlie's face, but we can't have everything.
Shame we didn't see that scene.
Yeah, you can't have everything in life, can you? No. So we'll take that. He asks, Gawain asks Rio what was he doing at his house, and proceeds to let Rio into the closed shop. So it's just, again, it's a little bit of context as to why Rio's there, and gives a little bit more of Gawain. I mean, we don't see a lot of him in the game anyway, but this is what the anime does so well, fleshing out these characters just enough to fit in the story.
Yeah, exactly. It's adapted that scene. So obviously in the game, Rio bumps into Gawain again outside Komanin Bakery, and he says, "My grandmother could probably read that," or whatever he says, and then that's the lead to the pottery shop. Really, you can go down either two leads. There's one with like Wang-san at the vending machine, who says, I think it's his teacher, or is it his Japanese teacher, or some sort of teacher.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, something like that, and he mentions the shop. So one or two ways, and they've took the Gawain lead in the anime kind of thing, which makes more sense in my opinion, because it's her grandson that Rio saved, and it just makes more sense then.
Yeah, it does, and I think that's the route the game wanted you to take. Obviously, Shenmue is quite clever that it allows you to take several routes to the same goal, but I think that was the route the games wanted you to take, and it just makes sense for them to pick it up that way in the anime.
Yeah, definitely.
So we then go into the Russia China shop. Gawain calls out to his grandma, who comes out from the back of the shop, who thanks Rio for helping him. Rio then whacks out the letter from Yuandazu and asks if she's able to translate it. She confirms that the characters are mirrored. It's reverse kanji in Shenmue 1, it's referred to.
Yeah.
And she holds the letter up to the mirror, begins to translate it. And the translation is slightly different to the games, which is fine. It is what it is. And I'll pick up on something with this in a minute as well. Mm-hmm. The translation reads, "Beware those coming, they seek the mirror. Contact Master Chen for help if the situation gets dire. Signed, Yuandazu," which we know is different from the games, whereas "beware of those who seek the mirror, seek the aid of Master Chen." So it's slightly different now.
Yeah.
And then Yuandazu. she then notices there's characters on the back that read as, and this is where the translation comes in. Here, in the Japanese subtitled version that we watched on stream, it reads as Father's Sky, 9 Dragons, Mother's Earth, Common Allies. Now, we know this as Father's Heaven, 9 Dragons, Mother's Earth, Comrades. And in the English dubbed version, that is what they use. They use the version from the game. But here, there's a slight difference to it. Now, whether that's a translation issue, whether that's just what was being said in Japanese, they just went direct from it, I don't know. It is a little bugbear of mine, I'll be honest.
Well, they did the same in Shenmue 3, didn't they? Because they ended up
Yeah.
doing Father's Heaven. We might have even done Father's Sky in the Shenmue 3, thinking about it. Then 9 Dragons, Mother's Earth, My Friend.
Yeah,
which was hilarious.
I'm just like, Common Allies, at least it's
not too bad, is it?
more.
Yeah.
You can understand it. And Father's Sky is a bit off, but it's not ridiculous. But yeah, it's just a bugbear. Little bugbear of mine. It's probably the only one I've ever had in 3 episodes.
Well,
so
you'd think the source material, the YouTube aspect of things, I don't want to say that they've got it purposely wrong, or they've tailored, because we saw with the prophecy, and I think, yeah, by the time you're listening to this, you may have heard the Natalie Rial interview she did, how she was saying that they were working on the prophecy translation quite a while, so there was like a few different takes of the translation of that kind of thing. So I mean, that could be a factor again with this, where they've tailored it slightly differently to how they see fit. I don't know, or could it just literally be a mistake in translation again?
I mean, it could just be a mistake.
Did you say the English dub? We heard the English dub from a trailer or anything yet? Because we haven't actually watched the English dub. He says comrades, right?
Yes, correct. So when the letter, because this was part of the teaser trailer from last week with episode 3, actually they show the letter scene, and she goes through it. It says, Father's Heaven, 9 Dragons, Mother's Earth, Comrades. So the English dub is correct.
So I'd assume then there's no subtitles in the English dub, is there?
No.
So I wonder if there is, like, say, when we get the Blu-ray or whatever, you can turn the subtitles on and it says what she's saying, or do you think it'll have this? You just use the same subtitle track?
Well, I have heard that they've, with Blu-ray and DVD releases, they do correct things here and there.
So it could be an aspect of that, yeah.
It could well be corrected if needs be, but I mean, we'll just,
because this could just be a direct Japanese translation.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm no expert on this at all, but it will certainly be a talking point in the community going forward. So anyway, they translate that through, and on the back of the letter, there's also some numbers in an old script corresponding to a telephone number, which we know is the telephone number for Master Chen warehouse number 8. So then the scene ends, and we end up cutting over to Debuita Street.
Okie dokie. So Ryo is now seen at the payphone, that famous pink payphone from the game outside the tobacco shop, Hirata-san's tobacco shop, and he's dialing the number from the letter. And someone actually answers the phone immediately with Father's Sky, so it's still got that translation thing we just mentioned there. So he responds with the correct phrases from the letters in sequence, almost like the person on the other end of the call is also expecting, the password, which he is, we know from the game. So Ryo successfully recites the password. We don't have any of that where he bodges it up and, if you pick the wrong choice from the game, but he just says warehouse number 8, kind of like what he does in the game. So Ryo then probes if it's the Chen residence that he's on the line to, but the phone's swiftly put down on him after asking. And then Hirata-san at the tobacco shop asks over Ryo, and he says he doesn't know whose number he's just called, but she suggests that Ryo then calls the 104 for the telephone helpline, which will end up giving him some more details about the number. So that's quite a nice touch as well, because obviously that is in the game. It probably is a real number in Japan. Like, you can probably type 104 as well for a helpline, similar to how we can do what's ours called over here, like the operator or whatever.
It's 100, isn't it, over here for the operator?
So,
or it used to
theirs is probably the same thing, 104. I don't know, it might be worth trying that, man. I don't know if that's still a thing. It was quite a while ago, showing our age there, if not.
Yeah, Christ.
But yeah, nice touch that's in there. And then it cuts to Ryo now stepping off the buzz to the harbour. We're getting that familiar start of disc 2 now, aren't we?
Yes.
Where, I'm thinking of the Dreamcast with the discs. If I mention the disc numbers, it's because of the Dreamcast. And whilst the voice of the helpline confirms the telephone number is from the warehouse district within the Amihama area. which is why he's there. So he enters the harbour and immediately witnesses 3 men intimidating one of the harbour workers. Ryo tells them to cut it out and that mugging is uncool.
Wee.
It's kind of that line that he uses in the game.
Black Mirror's way uncool.
Yeah. So 2 of the men recognise Ryo from Sukahai and step back almost as if they know who he is and of his reputation. So if they're if they are familiar with him based on the story of the anime, we know he's like this badass martial artist who one-punches people in karate tournaments. So the harbour worker that these guys were intimidating runs off, and Goro starts trying to throw some punches at Ryo, but Ryo's moving side to side and swiftly dodging all these punches and causes Goro to stumble. And then on Goro's last attempt, Ryo actually blocks the attack and sends him flying into a collection of oil barrels. Everything goes flying as per typical anime. There's a nice good thump there, isn't there, really? Another one of those brutal moments. And the other men flee, and Goro cowers under Ryo's presence and then offers his help. So we got that sort of typical scene there where Ryo's seen asking Goro where warehouse number 8 is, and Goro points behind Ryo. So this is slightly different in this scene, actually, because obviously from this point, Goro, I don't know, in the game he purposely or mistakenly sends him to the new warehouse district, doesn't he?
Does.
The new warehouse number 8, thinking that's what he means. And then it's at that new warehouse where we then find that there's a second warehouse in the old warehouse district. He also gives Ryo a tip that the guards tend to get off shift at around 7 p.m, implying that the warehouse district is, this private area guarded by security. And obviously, if he wants to get in there, he's going to have to infiltrate it at night. So this leads into Ryo obviously sneaking into the old warehouse district. If you want to take it from here, Titch.
Yeah, sure. So we go from day to night, and it cuts over to the harbour at night, so it's all dark and it's all beautifully lit. And we see Ryo hiding behind a solid fence, and he's looking into a window of a guard's office. So this is quite reminiscent of the game. So the guard turns his back at the window, and that's Ryo's opportunity to sneak in. So he makes his move and he sneaks in under the shelf. So there's like a shelf just underneath the window of the office, like a window ledge type thing, and there's like pens on it, which ends up being problematic for Ryo because the phone rings in the office and it makes Ryo jump. So he hits his head and he knocks a torch off. But luckily he's got good reactions because he managed to swoop down and catch it, and the guard doesn't even notice him, just carries on his phone conversation.
That's a good scene in the game, isn't it? Like, if you mess that up, just the win.
Yeah. Is it cute? It's QTE, isn't it?
Yeah. Ryo dives for it and catches it.
Yeah. So what was quite a stark difference was Ryo gets up from diving down and getting the torch. He gets up and makes it slightly past the office, and then a bag's thrown over his head, and then it cuts to black. So I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
And this character that did that was Guizhang, do we think?
It was really hard to see because it was dark. It could have been.
Oh, actually, there's more in the moment, and there's more Chens that we were referring to last week. How we were debating about Charlie and the gang calling them the Chens, and there's only 2 of them. But we do actually see a couple of the Chen's cronies, I suppose, if the gang's called Chen, I suppose, in this particular anime. But I think it probably was one of them, maybe, that jumped Ryo.
And got him. Looks like it, doesn't it? Just a random henchman just grabbed him and thrown him in a bag. Well, he's had a bin on his head last week and a bag on his head this week. Not going very well, is it?
Wonder what we'll see next week.
So it cuts into warehouse number 8, and the bag's pulled off Ryo's head. And he's a bit startled because obviously he's been kidnapped. So he's looking around the room and he can see antiques and crates and things. And then it shows a container that's branded with, well, I assume it's Chinese characters. It says Jiu Feng Company. And then it cuts to Ryo and he's tied up on the floor. And he's surrounded by 2 henchmen that are sort of dressed all in black. So quite nondescript, but assumingly they're part of, well, as we then find out, Master Chen and Guizhang's group. So they instruct the henchmen to untie Ryo, and they apologise for capturing him because it's not quite the nicest introduction, is it? So Ryo then introduces himself as the guy who called on the phone, and that he's in possession of a letter from Yuanda Zoo. And then he confirms that the letter instructed him to contact Chen if the situation got dire, which given what happened to Iwal, I think we can assume that it has got pretty dire at this point.
Yeah.
So Chen tells Ryo that Yondezu is an old friend, and he also lives in Hong Kong. And he's well known in their world, which alludes to the criminal underworld. So this puzzles Ryo a bit as to, why would his father be associated with people like that? So it's clear at this point that Ryo's really doesn't know a lot about his father, especially if he's got like a criminal past.
Makes you think, doesn't it? Like,
interesting.
Because from what we know from the games, Zhuao's not really that kind of character, and there's not really a criminal underworld vibe going on from that side of things. There obviously you've got your gangs like that you see in Hong Kong and Kowloon that are in the way of Ryo, but they're not really something you'd think of are tied to a WoW as such. I don't know, unless you think differently than me, Matt. Like in terms of Landy being involved in that, does that instantly make a WoW involved, or it's just not really covered in that way, is it? In the game,
no. In the games, it's very much intimated with Master Chen that he is a bit dodgy, but it doesn't allude to anything. Whereas obviously here, it's much more in your face. This is illicit, it's dodgy, all sort of under the table, cloak and dagger sort of stuff. So for Ryo to question why his dad's involved here, it makes sense because I think he obviously has a particular view of his father that's, I think, slowly being diminished over time. Whether he was actually involved in any sort of dodgy things underground, we don't know at this point, because he might have been dragged into a situation because he had to have been. We don't know. And this is part of Ryo's journey. But I think the context here around this criminal underworld, I think, gives a lot more questions than it does answers, but good questions. It fills the context out. It fills out why they're doing what they're doing. It actually fills out the threat to Ryo in terms of going into this world that he doesn't know anything about. He's come from quite a squeaky clean background to then go and be chasing the Chiyu men who are up, they're trained killers, and he's going after them. I like that sort of filler content around the Chens and their dodgy dealings.
So Chen tells Ryo about a precious mirror that was transported across China's borders by a Japanese. So I presume they're alluding to Iwao in that case. And Yuanda was the one who facilitated the transportation. And that leads Ryo to mention that Landy took the mirror, with Chen recognising the name of Landy.
Yeah.
And then Ryo begs Chen to tell him what he knows, because if he knows Landy's name, he must know about Landy and what he's about. So Chen then asks Ryo if he knows who the Chiyu men are, and he says they're one of China's most powerful and ever-expanding underground networks. And then I think it cuts to a shot of the plate.
Yeah, with the Chiyu monster
Chiyu figure on. Yeah.
Yeah, we got some really cool scenes actually of this. I really appreciate them going into this Chinese history and the lore behind the mirrors and this Chiyu beast, and it just makes exciting viewing for myself, really, like seeing this Chinese folklore sort of stuff going on and how they're representing it in the anime is really cool, like the visuals of the dragon and the phoenix. And I think there was that bit where there's like a thing with clouds and stuff and the big dragon mirror goes across the screen, right? Is that bit?
Yeah,
that's really good.
Yeah, and there's a Chiyu monster emerging out the cloud as well.
Yeah, amazing. See, that's the kind of stuff I love to see.
Yeah, they've really thought about it, haven't they? They've put a lot into this.
Yeah, totally.
So then Chen suggests to Ryo that Landy is a master of a particularly dreadful form of martial arts. Yeah, I highlighted that because that was in the subtitles, so it sort of alludes to some sort of evil, I suppose.
Again, it's cool seeing a little bit added into these scenes. Obviously, you get these scenes where you're talking, and Master Chen does mention Chiyu Monster and stuff, but it's like more of a passing comment when it's happening in the game, and you don't really see the intensity of things that could be happening until, say, probably like the end of Shenmue 2, once you start seeing some of these mystical elements suddenly start happening. So I remember playing Shenmue 1 originally, and you just think it's a very realistic Japanese world simulation sort of game. These aspects didn't come across. Maybe it was just because I was young and I wasn't expecting that kind of stuff to happen in the story, but they kind of don't really go into detail into these sort of things until the second game. So seeing them flesh it out a little bit more in the anime and already alluding to this monster sort of thing is cool to see, I think.
Yeah, I like it. I think in the games, I think that you're limited, aren't you, to what you can do. You can't pack too much in. Things spiral out of control. And here, where it's what, a minute scene, 30 seconds, where they're showing like the mirror, Chiyu, etc. And again, that's a lot of work. And I think things have to go elsewhere with games. Whereas here, they can show it, give a good context, and you're away in 30 seconds, and it just adds to the lore of the mirrors, which I really really like. It's just building that story. It's building that context. It's building everything around Rio's story. We were saying about this earlier, that everything's in the games is from Rio's point of view, whereas here you're getting several points of view of what's going on, and it just adds into that world building and that characterization of what's going on in the anime.
And so much so that if you want to carry on with the next scene, Matt, we get an entirely brand new location and subplot as such. So what's going on here?
We do. So it's called Zhui Hall, and it's somewhere in China. We don't know where, but we know it's China because on the screen, it actually has the Chinese characters for the person speaking, which it's a nice little sort of touch there. Nice bit of attention to detail. And Landy and his henchmen are interrogating this man. They've got him in like in a headlock and choking him, threatening him for information of the mirror. Eventually, like they let him down a bit. Landy sort of steps up in front of him and he's like, I want to know about the mirror. I want to know what's happened to it. And this other gentleman, whose name we don't know, turns around and says that it was taken back to Japan by a Japanese guy, and that Yuanda was the one who sort of arranged this all. And then Landy sort of mutters to himself, Yuanda, and it cuts back to warehouse number 8 again. But I wonder where this scene came from. Was it in the script originally, and we didn't get it in the games?
Yeah.
Or did they put something in and make up a new location as a bit of context as to why Landy actually ended up in Japan and why he's after Yuanda, because that's the name that's been thrown around for quite a lot.
Seems very specific though, doesn't it? Like Zhui Hall. And I think when we were streaming earlier, people were saying it was in a place called Langzhou or something like that.
Yeah, very close to it.
Or close to there, yeah.
So,
which is interesting because that's not really a location that's been spoken of at all.
No. And this is again why it begs the question whether it was in the scripts or not originally, and it was just supposed to be a little flashback scene, and they got rid of it or didn't bother with it, or the anime team have gone, do you know what? We actually need a bit more Landy here. We need a bit more context of why and what's going on, and they created this from scratch. Either way, it fits. And it's got us talking, hasn't it? Because it's completely new. It's completely different.
Yeah, totally. Because I was racking my brains as to whether it was a building in Shenmue 2, because there's lots of different buildings with different names. And I thought, I've not seen that one before. So maybe it is completely new to the story.
It fits. It whether it's scripts, whether it's made up and they've put it in, it fits. And getting more Landy, I'm all for it. Because I think he gets... in 3 games, he says the grand total of about 6 lines. I think we've had 6 lines in like one anime episode. So it's, again, it just adds to this characterization of Landy and his own motivations. But it goes back to what we were just saying, that you're getting several people's points of view as things are going on. You can sort of cut between them. Bailu Village, Rio's point of view, Landy, what he's up to. And it just adds more lore to this story, which is obviously all starting to kick off now. So we sort of jump back into warehouse number 8 after this scene in the hall, and Rio is again touching his plaster, thinking of Landy, and I think again that's quite symbolic, isn't it, with Landy and the scar that he gave him. Guizhang asks his father if Landy is seeking the Phoenix Mirror, which I find quite interesting that Guizhang even knows about the Phoenix Mirror at this point, because it's not intimated in the games that he particularly knows about it. And Chen, interestingly, scolds Guizhang for not maintaining proper form of address in front of guests, which I thought, this is interesting. It's slightly different because they've seemed to have a warmer relationship in the games than they do at the anime here.
Yeah, he's kind of cold, a bit like Awuwa was.
Very cold. Very, very cold. I think we were saying in the stream that the characteristic similarities are very much there. Rio confirms that one mirror was stolen, to which Chen confirms there's a second one depicting the Phoenix. So then you get the lore around the Phoenix come up on the screen. Again, it talks about all of that. And again, it's a nice bit of context to it. He claims it's safe to assume that Landy knows about the second mirror, but probably didn't assume that Awao had it. and Rio then entrusts himself to find it before Landy gets a hold of it. He then leaves the warehouse district by scaling the gate, with a character hiding in the shadows. I thought this character was one of Charlie's henchmen. It looked like him, but it could have been Goro, similarly dressed. It's interesting to see who that is. And are the Mad Angels, if it is one of them, do they know who Rio is now and are going to monitor him carefully, or is it Goro being nosy, or could it be somebody else? It's open for debate, I think.
Who do you assume it is, Titch? If you think it's Goro, or
Yeah, so it's interesting that because I thought
is it definitely Goro?
I'm not entirely sure now. I've been thrown. Yeah, because I thought it was Goro in the shadows, just keeping an eye on Rio in case he couldn't get in.
Yeah, it could be. That makes sense story-wise because he pointed him in that direction.
Yeah, so because Goro's quite friendly with people of the harbour and he's quite familiar in the game. So I thought maybe if Rio had any trouble getting in, Goro was there to sort of step in and like liaise with the guards and say, "Oh, Rio's my friend," etc.
What do we actually see? Do we see legs, body? Is it how dark and concealed is this person?
You've got legs and sort of an arm, and you can see like a purple t-shirt. And the reason I thought it looked like one of Charlie's henchmen, it looked like he had like almost like a waist jacket-y type thing on, which I know the guy in the purple who sits with him at the building site in Yamanote, El Sakurajiko, is it's the same dress that he's wearing there, exact same clothes, which is why I thought it might have been one of Charlie's henchmen.
But obviously Goro wears purple as well.
He does.
Could be Goro.
We'll find out.
Good catch anyway, guys. So moving into warehouse number 8 again, Guizhang is concerned about helping out Rio, as it will have repercussions with the Chiyu men and the Mad Angels, but Master Chen says they've no choice but to help him, as it's been requested of Zhu. Obviously, going from the letter there. So Chen puts Guizhang in his place for his constant pleading, implying that Guizhang is a subordinate in the organisation and has no say in the matter. So again, very cold to Guizhang, this father and son relationship. If you were coming new to the series, you perhaps would not know that the father and son, the way they're having at each other.
Yeah.
but obviously he does mention that, Guizhang does refer to him as father and says that they only become father and son again once they leave the underworld. So interesting, isn't it? That sort of take on that.
Yeah, and it gives more context to their relationship. But I was surprised how cold he was.
Yeah, me too. Because he's really friendly in the game, isn't he, Master Chen?
Yeah, he's quite a nice bloke in the games. Clearly not.
Yeah, because I didn't realise how sort of deep in the underworld that Chen and Guizhang were, because personally I didn't get that impression from the game, so they're really sort of hammering it home in the anime that they've got quite a cold relationship and they are quite criminal. Whereas I went into the anime thinking, they were sort of a bit more innocent than that. So it's an interesting take on the characters.
Yeah, we did check out, because obviously if you use Suka Pass, or you can still get onto the old Shenmue passport disc and get online with the passport section. They've got backstories. So I think I read, was it this one on stream, the old Warehouse number 8 backstory, which kind of does, this is like original Shenmue backstory for the game, if you know what I mean. So Master Chen and Guizhang can be found in this warehouse. It's used as a warehouse for works of art, but it's said that contraband cultural assets for which export overseas is prohibited are secretly stored here. Dummy works of art are also casually stored in order to deceive the authorities so that they can't be differentiated by the untrained eye. Master Chen also owns warehouses at a number of other harbours, but this warehouse is managed by Guizhang. And then if you check out the profile of Master Chen, it says he is one of the few wealthy Chinese magnates living abroad in Japan and is a big name in the trading business. He owns numerous trading operations worldwide, including the one in Yokosuka. While he deals in a variety of high-end merchandise, Master Chen is particularly well versed in antiques and has multiple patrons. He is said to own numerous works of valuable art, some of which are rumoured to be national treasures, but nobody knows for sure. It says he looks gentle and kind at first glance, but is a very calculating buyer with a stoic composure no matter what. So yeah, I mean, it does allude a little bit, if you read like the back history there, that they are involved in this sort of criminal activity, contraband and whatnot. So, it's fateful in that sense, but it is very unexpected to see because, like you say, in the games, if you're just playing the games without that sort of context, they do just come across as like a nice chap and a bit of an angry son. So it's kind of reversed in this, in a sense, an angry dad and a son that's a bit quiet, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's totally changed my opinion of both of them. I look at them in a different light now.
Bastards. So Master Chen then tells Guizhang that he has an assignment for him as well, but we don't learn what that is just yet, but we do find out eventually that he's basically told him to go catch up with Ryo, I think, right?
That's right, yeah.
That's what he's alluding to.
So we cut back to the next day in Iwal's room in the Hazuki Dojo. So Ryo's back home. He's looking all over for this second mirror because once he gets an idea in his head, he can't let it go. And he's started his search in Iwal's room. So he doesn't find it immediately, but he does find a sword in a box, and there's clearly no sign of the mirror around. Well, yeah, they do put a lot of emphasis on this sword because it's quite a prominent item to find. But then he goes into the dojo and he starts trying to stand on a stool and look behind a picture. So he's trying to cover all bases at this point. But whilst he's on this stool, he loses his footing and he falls over. And luckily Fuxon and Ine-san come running because they obviously hear the crash and they see Ryo in pain on the floor.
Yeah.
So
we were expecting him to grab the mysterious scroll, weren't we?
Yeah, I was.
Doing this scene. And I kind of hope that maybe, even though they didn't show it, he did, because there is some nice... I don't know if he's going to get it translated by Guizhang or whatever, but obviously we know it's in Ryo's inventory at the end of Shenmue 3, so it's like some significance in the game.
Yeah, definitely. I'd be surprised if they retconned it. Maybe you'll find it somewhere else, potentially.
Yeah, maybe like a future episode, because it's unusual to them to show that standing on the stool to get behind the thing to then not do anything with it. So maybe he'll remember and go grab it again. I don't know.
Possibly. I hope it's not retconned, because it's certainly what we've been led to believe with the games is going to be quite an important move to Ryo at some point. So if they've retconned it, I do wonder what that implications that could have for a Shenmue 4. But anyway,
yeah. Well, we've debated it being the move that Landy killed Iwao with, didn't we?
Yeah.
At one point, judging from the translation anyway that Guizhang gives you, but whatever. Carry on.
So it cuts over to the living room in the Hazuki residence, and Ine-san is nursing poor Ryo's back, so she's putting a little bandage on. So he's clearly hurt himself, even though he looks, nice and muscly and toned.
He's been thrown around a lot more than that, but
yeah, that's what I thought. So, yeah, all those fights, and it's a stool that eventually gets him. But anyway, he starts talking about the Phoenix Mirror with Fuxon, and in this scene, I noticed a little Easter egg which alludes to the game. So you can see the Sega Saturn placed on top of the TV, which if you play the game, you can find it in the cupboard underneath, and then you place it on top. So I like that little nod to the game there. So they're talking away, and it turns out that neither Ine-san or Fuxon are aware of the mirror. But then Ine-san mentions that Iwao had trusted something to an antique dealer in the town, literally days before his death. So obviously that sparks Ryo's imagination. He's like, oh, I wonder if that's the Phoenix Mirror. So,
very faithful to the game.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Yeah, you crack on if you want, Matt.
Okie-doke. So following that, Ryo goes to the antique shop in Debuita. He comes out of the storeroom. The antique shop owner comes out with the item that Iwao had left for safekeeping. It's not the mirror. It's the sword handguard, kept in a white fancy box, and the dealer confirms it depicts the Hazuki family crest. Now, one slight difference here is in the games, it's the shape of a snowflake, but here it's circular. Just a slight change. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it's just something that perfectionists might pick up. And it's been passed down for generations to the Hazuki heir when they turn 18. Ryo comments that it's not the Phoenix Mirror mentioned by Master Chen. And then the antique shop owner asks Ryo if he means Yao and Chen of Jiufeng Company.
It's interesting. I don't think we ever hear the name of the company or whatever, do we?
No, we don't at all in the game. So again, it's a bit more context. And Ryo confirms yes, it is. And the antique dealer says that they're run by an overseas Chinese gang within Yokosuka, who have amassed a fortune from smuggling antique art. And he doesn't. Interestingly, says you probably shouldn't be associating with them. I'm thinking it was a bit too late now, but it gives
Yeah.
it gives that again. It's that depth of the criminal underworld that the Master Chen and Guizhong are actually involved in. It runs really, really deep. If shop owners know about it, they go, "Yeah, this is a bit dodgy." They've obviously taken a conscious decision to really hone in on this. I think as for impact, which is certainly felt later on in the episode, I think. So following this, it cuts back to one of the famous scenes in Sakura Joker where Ryo notices he's being tailed, and he confronts him, and Guizhang comes around the corner, and he lunges at Ryo with a series of attacks, which ends up with Ryo being thrown against the wall. Ryo wonders what's been going on, and Guizhang confirms he's testing Ryo, and that he's been entrusted his bodyguard. And actually, Ryo's quite annoyed about this. You can see he sort of clenches his fist, and he's not particularly happy about it. And Guizhang tells him to relax, especially he doesn't know the gravity of his situation, which is, I'm sure that was a line in one of the teaser trailers that were put out a while ago. So that's
I remember that.
Guizhang saying that. And then he urges Ryo to find the mirror before Landi does. And Ryo then turns around and questions the fact that Guizhang and Master Chen are father and son. And why is he acting in form about his instruction to guard Ryo? Guizhang just turns around and says none of his business, so leading to it being a bit of a... It's very Guizhang, isn't it? It's none of your business. And it's obviously a sore subject for him. Meanwhile, we cut to Chai on the rooftop, who's been above the pair the entire time, overhearing the conversation. And that's pretty much one-to-one to the game. He's on that roof of that house, and he listens to that conversation and jumps off and runs away. And this particular scene is very much in keeping with the games. There's a bit more conversation than the games give you, but pretty much shot one-to-one. It's great, a perfect recreation of it, and it fits really nicely.
Yeah, spot on. So this is like, typically you're heading back home, aren't you?
That's right.
With the sword hand guard, but here it skips back to Debuita Street, and we've got Ryo passing Ida Florist, where Nozomi's outside talking to Mai. So this is cool. We're seeing another character from the harbour who ends up turning up in Debuita, of all places. So Ryo says to Mai that it's been ages, alluding to their acquaintance. Nice to get a bit of interaction with Mai. Just makes me think that in the future, now we've met up with Goro as well, there's going to be that sort of Goro and Mai thing going on, possibly in the next episode or two. They then ask why Ryo's looking gloomy, and he asks them where they would consider hiding a mirror. Nozomi says something about a secret room so that she wouldn't see, so that she wouldn't be seen looking at herself in it. What's that mean?
It was a bit weird, this.
Yeah, I think I remember it at the time, thinking, what, they're on about secret room?
Yeah, it's. I don't know if it's translation or it's just something that we didn't pick up in context. But she talks about they don't want to hide mirrors or something because they want to see how they look. But if she did want to hide
she's thinking of it like a full mirror, maybe.
Yeah, she's thinking of a standard normal mirror, whereas obviously Ryo's completely different track. But when she mentions that secret room, it's then, I think that's his light bulb moment, isn't it? He's like, oh, hang on a second. Maybe there is somewhere...
a secret room.
At the dojo.
Home kind of thing. Yeah. So Mai leaves and Nozomi's called back to work. She says she wants to talk to Ryo about the future. But this leaves the viewers stumped as Ryo to what she means, which we kind of are expecting it to be something about, the Canada thing that we might have got in the previous episode when she got the phone call from her dad from Canada. So they haven't actually gone into that in this episode, but I still expect to see something happening in the future with Nozomi telling Ryo that she's been forced back to Canada kind of thing. So we'll see where that goes. But back at the Hatsuki residence and in the dojo, it skips and we get this nice sparring scene between Ryo and Fukusan, very reminiscent of the games where Ryo and Fukusan are always sparring in the dojo together. And then after this, they start cleaning the dojo together. Then Fukusan notices that Ryo's getting stronger in his martial arts capabilities, but Ryo he still doesn't think he's any match. It shows the flashback of him getting twatted by Landi and obviously his dad getting thrown across the room kind of thing. So he still doesn't think he's that strong compared to the likes of like Landi and Chai. But whilst carry on cleaning, Fukusan notices the slots in the wall. He's always wondered what they were for kind of thing. Asks Ryo what he thinks they're for. Rio's unsure, but he recognises the family crest on the left, which obviously now he's got the sword handguard. That triggers another light bulb moment, I guess. And Fukusan says he's going to go off and clean the garden, I think, which made me think that Rio takes the word garden and thinks about where the mirror was buried under the tree. That's kind of what I was thinking. He kind of like touches his plaster and there's a bit of like a twig moment. That might just be reading too much into that. But anyway, he makes it back to Iwao's room and digs out the sword, which is like that big katana blade. And the box actually has the same crest on the front of it. He then takes the sword back to the dojo and places the handguard in the left slot and the sword into the right slot. So very reminiscent of the games again. It's just a little bit faster than discovering it, I suppose, that you would in the game. So the wall parts slightly and allows Rio to enter the secret room, and then we've got that ladder leading down to the basement, which once Rio gets there into the basement, it's a lot smaller size than it is in the game. There's a lot more going on in the game version of the basement, but that's fine. Rio's like instantly drawn to this box that's on top of an old chest, again depicting the Hazuki family crest. And then he opens the box and finds the Phoenix mirror. So it's quite simple. It doesn't have to break a wall down or anything daft like that. It's just there saying like, pick me up, I'm here kind of thing. And as soon as he picks it up, a strong beam of light kind of like shoots off towards a bookcase to the right from like the, like the little orb thing in the middle of the mirror, which is pretty cool. And it actually highlights a photograph of Rio's father and an old acquaintance in Bailey Village. It's kind of like sticking out of a few books. So that was quite interesting. I don't know if that's some sort of a magic thing or it just happened that the sunlight reflected, and I don't know if Iwao would set it up so that happened or it was just a bit of a coincidence. But either way, it's cool. He's got the photograph of his father and this friend in Bailey Village, which obviously, if you haven't played the games, you've been seeing glimpses of Bailey Village. That's where Shenmue is at the moment. So that's quite cool. We're going to find out more about that later. That was a bit of a mouthful. Do you want to take this massive chunk, Titch, or lead us all the way to the end?
Yeah, I can't wait to read this bit because I'm probably going to get confused over what I've written.
Okay.
All right, let's go then. So we cut back to warehouse number 8, and Ryo's back in the warehouse with Chen and Guizhong, and he's got the Phoenix mirror in tow now. So Chen believes that Landy knows about the second mirror, but he didn't actually know that Iwao had it in his possession, which is why he only left with one. So yeah, Landy got the dragon mirror, and then Ryo's now found the second Phoenix mirror. So then Chen says Yuandazu wants to explain to him about the prophecy, so the one we've heard many times throughout the anime.
Yeah.
Well, in short, it's when the dragon and the phoenix meet, the gates of heaven and earth will open, and Chi-Yu, which is the monster, will resurrect itself on earth. And based on this, Chen believes that Landy is planning something along the lines of that prophecy, and so he needs both mirrors to achieve it. And it's at this point that Sneaky Chai swoops down from above. He snatches the mirror from Ryo, which the force of it throws Ryo back against some crates. So Guizhong steps in, and he challenges Chai, but he can't get hold of him because he's too fast. Eventually, he does get a kick into Chai's chest, which throws him right back. And then Chai retaliates by throwing a vase at Guizhong. Probably a priceless antique vase, oh no. And then he starts jumping up high and scaling to the top near the ceiling onto some like overhead structures. So Chen and Guizhong act fast, and Guizhong gets Ryo to press a button on the wall, which causes those overhead structures that Chai's got himself up to. They start to wobble and move, and then that throws Chai off balance. And as a result of that, Chai loses grip of the mirror, which then starts to fall really quickly to the ground. And luckily, Ryo manages to catch it, so it's not, smashed into a million pieces. That's the end of the story.
Yeah.
And then Chai just finds himself defeated, and he just escapes out of an open window, which should have left that closed.
That's how he got in, I guess.
Yeah. Security flaw. So let's get back to talking, and Chan believes that Chai was sent by the Mad Angels because of their connection with the Chi-Yu men. And Guizhong confirms that the Mad Angels are a competing operation to what the Chens have got going on, but instead of antiques, they're dealing with smuggling arms and illegal drugs, which is a bit more dodgy than antiques, I suppose. And he believes that they would have helped Landy during his visit to Kosuke, so they probably sorted out his boat and getting across and things like that.
Okay.
And that leads Ryo to thinking that if he can get to the Mad Angels, then that'll be his lead to get to Landy. But at this point, the Chens believe that Landy's already left Yokosuka, so he's got what he's come for, and he's made his getaway at this point. And they think that he's gone to Hong Kong, and it sort of confirms this while he's telling Ryo, because it shows a cutscene with Landy asking his henchman to arrange his immediate departure from Yokosuka.
Yeah, nice to see this again. It's like the perspective of Landy again, and he seems to have like a sort of a residence in Japan, doesn't he? So he's got this sort of Chinese-looking room again, but it's not that hall, is it? It's somewhere in Japan. He's looking out the window or whatever.
It's pretty swanky as well.
Yeah.
So then Ryo directly asks the Chens if they can help him get to Hong Kong, but they tell him it's a waste of time. And of course, Ryo being stubborn, he retaliates and he says, well, you know what, Grisong, what would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you shut up and take your father being killed right in front of you? Just watch it happen and just leave it at that. So then Ryo really hits a nerve with Grisong when he particularly says that no matter what happens, he will always be his father's son. So again, it's alluding to that weird relationship that Master Chen and Grisong have got going on. So even though they're related, they're all about the business, the underground business they got going on. So that causes a flashback to the scene where Master Chen says they will only be father and son when they leave the underworld. So that was earlier on in this episode. It's when they were at the top of the stairs.
Yeah.
So Master Chen then rejects Ryo's request for help because he doesn't want to lead a young boy like himself into the criminal underworld, which for me, I thought he's probably relating Ryo to his own son, Grisong, and thought, oh, I don't want to put someone else through that. He probably has this sort of underlying guilt of that he's dragged his son into all the underworld stuff. So then this leads to Ryo questioning his father, and he asks Chen if Iwao was part of any sort of criminal underworld gangs himself. But Master Chen refuses to answer and says the only way that Ryo will ever find out is if he ends up getting involved himself with those organisations and facing off with the Chiyu men, which he's already tried to talk Ryo out of doing by refusing to help him go to Hong Kong.
So is that? I'm trying to work out where they're taking this now. Are they trying to say that Chen knows that Iwao was involved in this sort of stuff?
I don't know if they're saying he knows. I think it's more intimated, isn't it, that there was something dodgy going on, and he doesn't want to. I think to lead Ryo down that path and put him in danger. Mm-hmm. Also, it might be a bit of a protective measure as well, that he probably doesn't know what his father was up to, may not want to find out.
Yeah.
So Ryo confirms that he's still going to go after Landy after all that, and he doesn't fear death, as if he did, he'd never see his father for who he really was. Which again hits a nerve with Grisong because it cuts back to Grisong and he's like taken aback a bit, and then I think it then shows a shot of Master Chen. So they're really sort of putting an emphasis on this relationship between Chen and Grisong. And then Ryo decides that he's going to get strong, as it's the only thing that he can do.
This is exactly what we've been talking about, isn't it, Matt? Where they're not going for the revenge side as such. They're like really harking onto this. What could Iwao have done kind of thing? What was Iwao involved in? Ryo doesn't really know who his father was kind of thing. And those are the answers he's kind of seeking into. He wants to get strong to find out what his father is involved in, I guess.
Yeah, exactly that. And I do think the revenge element may take a stronger precedence as he gets to Hong Kong. We know that Ewing's quite big on him not taking revenge. So I'd be interested to see how that plays out. But at the moment, it's very much around Ryo. You don't know your father. What was he involved in? What was he doing when he was in China? And what answers are you trying to get? And at the end of the day, the only motivation he's got, or the way to do it, is to get stronger. But I think he's being fueled by the wrong things, isn't he? He's being fueled by vengeance and also by self-doubt around his father. So I'd be interested to see how that all plays out as we hit Shenmue 2's content. But obviously we're not quite there yet.
No, we've still got a few more to go. I would assume we were trying to break it down what we thought might be in the next episodes. Perhaps maybe another 2 episodes in Japan. So it's going to be interesting to see where these things get taken. So in the very final scene of this episode, we see Landy jetting off on his boat to Hong Kong. And he's sort of on that big speedboat thing, and he swerves past a large ferry. So it does look like the ferry from the game, the Genpu Maru. So I don't know if they're already showing that in this form, or it just happens to be a big ferry that's boarded up at the harbour there. And then we get the end credits roll, which is the same as the previous episode, depicting Ryo and Nozomi's friendship. So that's it, guys. So great job. Before we actually move on to that episode 4 preview that we got a taste of, we're going to have a quick break with a piece of music from Shenmue 1's OST, which is rather fitting after meeting Guizhang. And this is A Technique Passed Down. Welcome back. That was A Technique Passed Down from Shenmue 1's OST, which, in case you weren't aware, you can actually find on Spotify and Apple Music as part of that Shenmue 1 and 2 Sound Collection soundtrack. Shenmue 3 soundtrack's also on there if you'd like to really immerse yourself in Shenmue music. Perhaps, someone that hasn't played the games yet would be interested in checking out some of the music at least. So that episode 4 preview, Matt, you able to share with us what actually happened? What do you think we can probably expect to see in the next episode?
Well, I think this one is a bit of a fan service because we are getting forklifts, lots of forklifts.
Yay!
So if you are new to Shenmue and don't understand the forklift joke, you're about to. So what it is basically a very short scene of Ryo working the forklift job at the harbour. Mark sort of basically taught him how to use the forklift. He seems quite standoffish, actually, Mark, here. A lot less friendly than he is in the games. And then Ryo's driving this forklift around, and someone from Alpha Trading pops up and says, "Oh, can you bring this box over here?" And Ryo puts his foot on, I think, on the reverse pedal, puts it in reverse, and it shoots backwards. And he's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, well, he says something like, I think I'm getting the hang of this, or something.
Yeah, I'm getting the hang of this. Whack. Yeah. As he does.
Which makes me wonder, that we saw that little bit in that trailer where someone bangs through a wall or something.
Yeah, Ryo's lost it and binned it through a wall. And then it cuts to a little scene where he thanks Mark for helping him. Again, Mark's quite standoffish. He's like, yeah, whatever, and sort of leaves. He's very cold again. In the games, he's quite pleasant. But so in terms of what I think we'll get, we're obviously going to get some forklifts. We're obviously going into the sort of job section. I think, James, we were talking about this on stream. We're likely, I think, to get the Nozomi Canada thing come through. We know she's had the phone call. It's just how she's going to break that to Ryo and how he's going to break her heart and let her down, which we all know he's going to do very soon. I'd be interested to see how they put together the Mad Angels interaction at the harbour, because there's a lot of fights here leading up to obviously the 70-man battle, etc. So are they going to throw in every fight? Are they going to amalgamate fights? I think one thing we were saying is maybe they'll focus more in on Mark and the issue with his brother, and sort of have that as the main driver to the Mad Angels rather than all the side stuff.
Which could be why he seems a bit so standoffish in a bit.
Yeah, so
something's bugging him.
something's not right. So I think that's what we'll probably get in terms of the context of that episode. Whether we get a little bit of Rio trying to find the money to then go to Hong Kong to then end up at the harbour,
Possibly.
it's quite probable as well. So
I think we'll see Mai and Goro perhaps a little bit more because they've introduced Mai, so they could be planning to set up their relationship a little bit as well.
yeah, quite possibly. I think it will follow the games pretty closely, but I do think there will be some liberties taken in terms of condensing it down for the anime. But that's fine. I have no issue with it. Looks good though, and forklifts. I'm quite surprised we're getting what looks to be quite a chunk of forklifts because I wasn't under that impression at all.
Well, I think it was Jason DeMarco says don't expect like a whole episode dedicated to forklifts or something. But
yeah, that was it. He said it on Twitter.
Yeah, we'll do something fun or something. He said, didn't he? So, anything else you can think of, Titch, we might see?
Oh, I'm hoping we get to see Tom again because we've not seen him since the first episode.
No, we haven't actually.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
That's true.
Yeah.
Disappeared.
Yeah, it's interesting that I do hope they bring him, back at least before the end of Rio leaving because he does teach Rio an important move at the end of Shenmue 1. So I hope they manage to shoehorn that in somewhere.
I reckon we might see him back in the harbour now you've said that.
Yeah.
With the tornado kick. And obviously we've got the homeless man we haven't seen yet.
Of course, yeah.
Could end up seeing him, I suppose, who teaches Rio some moves as well. And I mean, they could have done it for him, helping him get into the warehouse in this episode, but obviously they didn't do that. So there's some really good, if you think of like what's to come fight scene wise, there's some good fight scenes where homeless man's being chased by the bike gang into like the chicken race or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a few things there, and obviously we're going to get the 70-man battle at some point, and Nozomi's going to get kidnapped. We know, spoilers. I did say spoilers up front, but that is what happens in the game. But right, quality stuff, everyone. Are you ready for some Jim's Poetry Corner?
Let's do it.
Go on then.
Okay. I'm glad you didn't say no. That would have been awkward. So, as usual, really simple. Just say the name of the character who most likely wrote this poem. And have you got any guesses from the title? Which is The Secret Message.
Ooh. That's an interesting one.
My mind's gone to Yuanda Zoo. Is it because the characters are backwards on the letter? That's my first.
Not a bad shout. Yeah, not a bad shout. I think this is actually quite a fitting poem, actually. Timed quite well to this episode.
Ooh.
But yeah, see if you can get it. For all those fathers in heaven, this one is for you. I'm lucky that mine is still close too. Together we work like two peas in a pod, often communicating by use of just a simple nod. Under security we are hidden away. Not 7, not 8, but 9 dragons we count each day. Our job is in imports and exporting, but if you're looking to get to Hong Kong, we can aid in transporting. Although I would not admit I've been stubborn since birth, but I'll be your bodyguard to protect while residing here on Mother's Earth. Thank you very much, the pleasure is all mine. That thing you just said, no, that was my line. Friends are important, so try to keep them near. So hey Hazuki, how about we go out for a beer? Comrades we are, that is our fate. Come and meet me at warehouse number 8. Just please don't break another one of my plates, for fuck's sake.
Oh, I love it.
Well, it's very good actually. I think it's Guizhang.
Yeah, has to
Guizhang for sure. I quite enjoyed that one because I was trying to work out how I could fit in the secret message. The Father's Heaven, 9 dragons.
Do it very well.
Mother's Earth,
very
comrades.
clever.
So if you missed them, listen back, and I managed to incorporate them.
It's not Father's Sky then.
Not Father's Sky, and not all. What was it? The new one.
Common allies, something like that.
All common allies or something. Yeah.
Ooh.
I'll have to rewrite the poem for that now.
Yeah, thanks for the visual imagery of Rio and Guizhang having a beer together. That's something I've not imagined
That's
before.
true, yeah. I reckon they would at least towards the end of the game, yeah. Might go out for beer. But anyways, guys, thank you very much for that. Titch, amazing again. Thanks for all the notes you've provided. You've got, this time I'm definitely right, if we plug it now, you've got a stream coming this or next Thursday, okay? So even though it's not next Thursday, just think of it because this is going to go out on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
So next Thursday, you stream for the dojo. episode 4 of your Shenmue 3 Let's Play, correct?
Yeah, that's it. Looking forward to it.
Beautiful.
Good stuff. And that stream will end up being a bit of a charity thing. Matt mentioned, did you mention it in this? I don't know if you mentioned it yet, but we're doing a sort of a charity event for Special Effect Game Blast 2022. We're Team Radio Sega, and me and Matt have got our own stream that we're going to talk about a little bit when we get in the news section in a second. So we're just going to let Titch shoot off now. But yeah, you can expect to watch Titch stream some Shenmue 3, and she'll be doing that for charity as well at the same time. So yeah, hope you can join in on that stream. It'd be great to see.
Awesome. Look forward to it.
Good stuff. So take care, Titch.
Oh, thank
and we'll
you.
see you next
See you
week.
later.
I'll see you again. Thanks for having us.
Okay, so we're going to jump into the news section now, Matt. Again, not too much going on, but we're going to run through a few things here. You may have seen this if you watch, if you've noticed on our YouTube channel, or IGN's for that matter. But Yu Suzuki's had a little message at IGN's FanFest 2022. What happened in this video, Matt?
So, FanFest is like an online event that IGN do every year, looking at games, anime, and other bits and pieces in the media. Yu Suzuki popped up looking in very good health, actually, looking very good, very happy. And he was just talking a little bit about the anime, just saying that he's hoping that people are enjoying it, that it's a way into people who haven't played the games to enjoy the Shenmue world, and that they shared a teaser from episode 3, which is Fuku-san and Ryo having the sparring session in the dojo. So it's a very short, sort of 2-minute snippet, but it's good to see Yu Suzuki out there talking about Shenmue, especially on a mainline place like IGN. More coverage, the better, I think, with Shenmue. And this anime is actually nailing it in that respect.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder if they've got people excited by seeing that clip. Do you think that's one of the more exciting clips they could have shown, or could they've shown something further down the line? I wonder.
I mean, it's interesting. They could have gone down the line and showed like a bit of the 70-man battle or something. But I mean, he's shown a bit of the fighting, which is very well done. They've got to leave enough to the imagination, haven't they? They can't just go all in on one of the big plot points. So I think very clever what they put through. Yeah, and I'm glad that he's out doing things with Shenmue and talking about it publicly and looking happy doing it. Because obviously, why isn't it doing something we don't know what? And hopefully it's Shenmue 4, but we'll just wait and see.
Yeah, like I say, it looked healthy, and it looked like, I could be wrong, but it did look kind of like the WiseNet offices, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, all we see is he's just surrounded by blinds, basically, but it did feel like he was, perhaps not Zoom, but he was honed in from a different location. He wasn't like at IGN.
No,
it kind of looked like that similar sort of office feel
that
we see in a lot of the Kickstarter updates and stuff.
Look pre-recorded, if anything, but that's cool.
Yeah. Good stuff. So, Matt, today, which is what date are we on here, just for reference? So Sunday the 20th, obviously this is the day that episode 3 of the anime actually was aired. And Shenmue was actually trending on Twitter, right?
It was. We've been lucky with this anime that Shenmue has trended a few times. It trended when they announced it. It trended when the first teaser came out, and it trended again with the sort of the release date trailer. But yeah, after episode 3, and actually, I must correct myself, it trended after the first episode. But after episode 3, it was trending again in the United States. One of the highest trending topics in the United States. I believe it was fairly high up in the UK rankings as well in terms of trending. The anime is doing a hell of a job in getting publicity around Shenmue and getting a positive buzz around it. Now, also, I must go on record of thanking the community groups like Shenmue Forever, Phantom Riverstone, etc., for helping push this sort of thing, because it works really, really well, and we're getting the voice out there about Shenmue. The anime is getting it out there, and all this is doing is creating more fans. And I'm so pleased that we are being able to share this wonderful franchise with so many people, and it is trending.
Yeah, well, like you say, we're 3 episodes in now, and Shenmue's still trending. There's still a buzz 3 episodes in. It's not like people have tailed off after episode 1 or whatever. So we're ongoing, we're strong, and we're committed to the cause, I guess.
Yeah.
Which leads me on to my next topic, actually. If people are out there very passionate about Shenmue, what can they do over at My Anime List? I think we mentioned this previously, or we want to try and mention this every single episode, but obviously this is something that's specifically going to help out Shenmue
Yeah, so my anime list, you know what it is by this point if you've been listening to us for quite a while. What you need to do is search the Shenmue Anime on there, list the number of episodes that you've watched, and give them a rating out of 10, basically. Rate it honestly, but if you're loving the anime, give it a good rating because it's only going to encourage more people to watch this anime and more people to check out the games. And at the end of the day, we want more Shenmue, and this will contribute to us getting more Shenmue.
Yeah, definitely. And if you can do this after every episode, if you remember, and we'll try and remind you anyway, it just helps to keep the ratings going up for every single episode, basically. So, Matt, you've actually been speaking to a few people involved in the anime, at least the English dub side of things. You had Joe Daniels last week, and as this particular podcast airs, you've already released your second one, which is with Natalie Rial.
Yes, so she's the voice of Shenhua. I'm reciting the prophecy a lot, and actually we talk about the prophecy in the interview and how it was put together and changed and chopped. Gone through a lot of work. Natalie was a brilliant guest. Thoroughly enjoyed having her on. Very enthusiastic about her character Shenhua, and also, and I said this last week, very nervous about how the character came across because she wanted to do well for the community. And this is someone who wasn't particularly aware of Shenmue before her brother played it as a kid, but wasn't particularly aware of it and has taken this on board and really wants to do well. So it's nice actually to see that someone's taken that on personally and was genuinely nervous about how Shenhua would be received. And 3 episodes in, fantastic job. Get her back for season 2.
Yeah, 100%, man. So the anime is obviously performing really well up to episode 3, but you may not be aware that you can now watch the anime over on your Nintendo Switch handheld gaming console. Crunchyroll, the application, is actually available to download from the Nintendo eShop. And so if you are wanting to watch Shenmue the Anime on the move, you've already got your subscription to Crunchyroll, you can sign in on your Switch now, and you can watch the anime on the move, which is really cool, actually.
Yeah, it's
I
great.
don't know if you've done it yet, Matt, have you?
Oh, I did it. Don't you worry. I've had a quick go of that. Sat down. Yeah, I will abuse that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You might as well, if you've got a Switch anyway, get it on there. Get Shenmue on there. And if you're travelling anywhere, get it on. Which leads us into a few things that the dojo have been doing recently, Matt. So you've started an Easter egg hunting video based on episodes. You did one on episode 2, right?
Yes, I did, and by the time this is aired, there will be one for episode 3. I did it as a bit of fun more than anything else, just a bit of a laugh, something to do. So I can't promise it's going to be for every episode, but what I do is I go through the anime, I pick out sort of 5 to 10 scenes from it, and I highlight and talk about the Easter eggs in there. It's very short, 5-7 minute videos, quick fire, in and out, but good fun. And it just shows actually how close to the games and the source material the anime actually is. It's heartwarming to see how close they are.
Yeah, and there's some really fun Easter eggs in there as well, like the one from Today of the Sake Saturn. So if that does interest you, you want to see some stuff that we spot that perhaps you haven't, go check over at the Shenmue Dojo YouTube channel, and you find a whole host of content there anyway. And on shenmuedojo.com, ongoing blog posts from Splash, Breeze, and Hiki.
Yep.
So check out them. They're weekly occurrence now. Always great reads if you want to have a different sort of take on, different perspective on the anime series so far.
Yeah, very much so. I think Splash does more of a sort of a recap with some little bits and pieces in comparison, and Hiki goes into a lot more detail around the lore. Both very good reads, both weekly, and again, it's absolutely nuts that we're 3 weeks into a 13-week season, and it's all hands to the pump at the moment, and it's great for the franchise. At the end of the day, that's why we do it.
And it doesn't stop there, Matt, because like we alluded to a moment ago, we've got a bump along stream planned.
We do.
Well, 2 days from now on the Sunday after you're listening to this. So I hope you can tune in then. We'll be kicking things off at 6 p.m. But Matt, if you can tell us what is going on in the stream, because obviously this is a charity stream with a charity called Special Effect.
Yeah, so we're taking part. We did this last year in an event called Game Blast. So it's for Special Effect to raise money for equipment, to augment equipment for people who are disabled, etc., to play video games. So it's obviously a charity, all quite close to all of our hearts in that respect. We're part of Team Radio Sega. So there's going to be lots of streams coming from Team Radio Sega across that weekend. We're going to be starting off with a stream at 6 p.m. where for about an hour and a half we're going to play Shenmue 1 and compare it to the games as closely as possible. That'll be James, Titch and myself doing that.
Nice,
so that's
three-way stream there.
Three-way stream there. We'll really sort of drill down to sort of the comparisons to the anime. Have a half an hour break where I'll probably like play a video of some description, probably GDC 2014 I'm thinking at this point. And then we will go in at 8 o'clock. We'll go into the anime watch along, blind watch along as we've been doing, and then record the podcast afterwards.
So very busy evening next Sunday.
We're gonna, we all talked out by then, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And then, like I said, Titch will be streaming the following Thursday, and that'll be a charity stream too, just picking up from where we left off. So check out that. Should be doing episode 4 of a Shenmue 3 playthrough.
Yeah, that's correct.
And then finally, if all being well, a final announcement on that same Sunday, that Bumper Sunday, will be a special announcement there. So look out for that. I don't want to reveal it yet, but I don't know. You might be able to work out what it's going to be. But yeah, check that out. Hopefully by then you'll know what I'm on about now. But yeah, wait and see.
Wait and see. You'll like it.
So Matt, let's jump into the final part of the podcast. I want to highlight some awesome forum comments, obviously the Shenmue Dojo forums for that matter. So these are 10 handpicked comments, just basically about episode 2. So we're going to see some feedback from different people regarding that particular episode. And I'll start with the first one by Daniel Mann 861, who says, all right. So where do we begin? Well, obviously we're not getting much in the way of side quests in this anime, as there's literally no Megumi or the cat to be seen, unless they've restructured and might have a reference somewhere further down the line. But I think it was a novel approach to abbreviate the detective mode of the game. It does, in many ways, feel like cliff notes of the detective stuff, but I'm okay with that. It moves along at a brisk pace and makes sense. I like the little changes they've made to keep it flowing. It's very quick, there's no denying that. The pace just goes and goes. I was stoked to see the Bailu crew. I really did not expect to see anyone else from Bailu in this series, but holy crap, there they were. Arcade sequence. Now just give me a capsule toy sequence and we're good. I really love the fact that the anime allows for other perspectives. I love that we're not so tied to Rio in this, and it does allow us to see other things that are going on. That's maybe my favourite part on this take as a whole. It's different but familiar. I was also surprised they changed the location of that fight from the car park to the empty storage room. Thought for sure that the fight was going to be at the docks when I saw it teased in the trailer, but no, it's actually way earlier. And I kind of like that Chai has a big presence and is always lingering around Rio. That's kind of neat. And I really, really loved the double blow moment at the end. That payoff was awesome.
Spot on. And then we move on to Retro Lord 120. I didn't really feel such a warp speed in this episode at all. I thought the pacing was where it should be. Anyways, that was better than the first episode. What a treat that was. So many references, so much character building. Oh my god, I can't contain myself. Laugh out loud.
Lol. Big lol. Yeah. And then Pillman says he loves the fateful recreation of the scenes and backgrounds. I was quite shocked that they included the Bailu crew, so another one shocked by that. Some of the twists and changes were done well. Fight scenes were a little bit quick, but I suppose that ties into the whole not wasting flashy moves concept. Okay, not sure what he means. Seeing the arcade was awesome, as well as the Heartbeats bar.
I think there he's probably thinking you're saving your better animation for the fighting for your big battles, like the 70-man. That might be where he was going with that.
Possibly. Yeah.
Just as a guess. Right, so we move on to Kintor. In episode 1, I thought they were using Shenmue 3 as a reference for the design for Bailu Village. The presence of so many villages directly from the game confirms that fact. It's nice to see Shenmue 3 being directly acknowledged in the anime, even if the game wasn't published by Sega. That's a very good point, actually, that Sega's anime team are animating this, putting this together. So to see Shenmue 3's actual reference and that being taken seriously is great. Anyway, I also like how the anime is taking more time to develop Ryo's relationships with the people around him. That sometimes gets lost in the shuffle with Shenmue's open-ended gameplay, depending on how the player handles things. Suffice to say, I'm pleased to see that Nozomi is getting so much screen time this early in the story. The trickier part is going to be Shenhua. It is certainly interesting that the audience has been introduced to her immediately. Hard to say though how the writer will keep expanding on her material in Bailu Village. Strictly speaking, Shenhua's story doesn't really begin until she meets Ryo. It's interesting and very true.
It's very true as well. It's nice that we are getting a bit more of a fleshed out version of her and fleshed out version of Bailu Village before we get there. So yeah, I'm on board. That leads to Orient, who says, it was awesome to see Shenmue 3 characters so faithfully represented at the beginning. I thought the pacing was solid, tons of scenes, but many of them had a chance to breathe and play out at a leisurely pace when required. Even the streamlined investigative parts show snippets of what happens in the game, like Ryo asking about Charlie at the jacket shop, tattoo parlor, etc. It's just so lovingly put together. It felt like a very conscious decision to have Ryo not asking about sailors, and I don't blame them. The one part that felt a little scrappy, budget-wise, was the Heartbeats bar fight, which is way cooler in the game, let's be honest, but the fight with Charlie's goons somewhat made up for it when Ryo entered beast mode and trashed them fools. I think he means that big spinny kick thing.
Yeah,
cool.
that's whirlwindy thing he does. So we move on to I got Sriracha in my DNA. Yes, Shenmue 3 characters. I love this. This is like a universal thing, actually. A lot of
everyone loves seeing the Shenmue 3 characters, don't they?
Yeah, which is great. Great episode, and they handle the investigative parts economically and yet satisfyingly. I really dig more forward Nozomi. I never disliked Nozomi, but I also never found her compelling in the game. I think the changes are for the better, in my opinion. I also love how much more involved Yagamashi-san it was than in the game at this point. And also they threw in the breadcrumbs with the soccer ball boy by saying Gigi to lead most likely next week's episode with the lady in the Russia China shop. The only thing I wonder is if we'll see Naoki and Ichiro play any pertinent role in the Yokozuka episodes. I thought initially they may have been cut out of the anime as they didn't appear at all until we see the picture of them in Nozomi's room.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, is it just going to be the photo only that we'll see them, or do you reckon Ryo will bump into them?
He's got to nick someone's motorbike at some point.
That's true, yeah, Naoki, so yeah, could see them again further down the line. Next, again, we've got Kalis Koenig, 91. He says he's just finished up. The anime soundtrack release can't come soon enough. These new arrangements of familiar themes are great. Please do Earth and Sea and Swallow Dive. Seeing Shenmue 3 characters is amazing. I'm loving how Shenmue has been integrated from Jump. This gives me high hopes that the anime will truly flesh out Shenmue 3's story shortcomings. That's a good point. We've got a full episode of detective work and the pacing was great. What they are doing with a lot of the side characters is great. I never noticed that Fukusan was much older than Ryo in the games, yet yeah, he's 26 and I can see it in the show. In the games he was a lovable doof. So many nice little details like Ryo having capsule toys, all the locations and characters, the plot focusing on Ryo trying to learn about his father over trying to purely learn about Landi is made for a much better narrative already. This means by default we will likely get some backstories we had hoped Shenmue 3 would have had if they ever do a Season 2 that tells that game story. We got the female-centric ending theme, like I guessed, and I'm willing to bet that there will be a Shenmue 2 arc that will have a separate ending theme or animation. That's a good point as well.
Good idea.
It's quite Nozomi heavy at the moment. In my opinion, this is making for a much better depiction of Disc 1 than the actual games were in terms of story. No complaints at all for this episode. Whereas number 8 and Phoenix Mirror for episode 3, I'm guessing. Yeah, it was true. I guess if I had one concern about the show is I really hope they go all out with the 70-man battle fight. The show needs that one fight that will go viral in anime circles and social media to bring in people that are looking past the show.
Yeah, valid point. I think they're going to blow the budget on something like that. They've got to.
I reckon so, yeah. And what they've used the budget for already is amazing, so it can only get better, I guess.
So we come on to Mr. Sun. He says it's another great episode. Again, love seeing the Shenmue 3 characters, although they're really going hard on the prophecy. It seems like it's bookended both episodes now in 2 in a row where we have the Shenmue music and prophecy playing over the final scene. We'd be curious if this continues, although hard to see this concluding every single episode. Interesting stylistic choice if they do so, however. I think someone earlier said how they have cut out Shenmue's side events to focus on the core story, although actually this isn't the case. We've had at least 2 of these events already, the park fight with Eneki, which is very missable in Shenmue 1, and now the double blow with Yagamashi, which is also missable. In fact, Yagamashi-san virtually gets his own mini arc this episode as he comes to terms with Ryo's desire to learn about the truth about his father after initially sensibly trying to dissuade him. I definitely think there'll be more side stuff, and the Yagamashi scenes were really well done. The continued shift on Ryo's motivation is interesting here, especially considering a big part of the Manmo Temple section with Ewing is about her stopping Ryo throwing his life away on revenge. I suppose, though, that may ramp up the revenge side more as we go along. Although, to be honest, Ryo is still embarking on a foolish, near suicidal mission regardless of the slight shift. So not too much has changed anyway. Ryo is still very single-minded and naive here, so there's plenty of room to grow. Also, this version of the nightmare scene gives us the extra Landy moment, which seems to be a real point at what Rio becomes obsessed with finding the truth out about his father. I loved the added scenes again. The way they are developing Rio Nozomi is really well done. We get to see Nozomi's room. I always want to see something like that after the calls in the game with Nozomi, and I feel like the off-screen mother calling is a reference to those calls too. Pacing felt more relaxed this week, with less heavy lifting to do than episode 1. Guizhang and Master Chen, next episode, bring it.
Very good, man. That's quite a long one, but we're ending with 2 shorter comments now. Got one from Nick Tack. That's it, I'm in. Whatever the hell they're going to do next, I am down for. I'm loving it so far. They're filling in the blanks, so much context added to some situations in the game. Charlie and Yamagishi scenes are great, plus that soundtrack. They're sticking with a cinematic style soundtrack, and I love it. Also, most importantly, Cat confirmed canon in the credits.
True. And we on to the last one, was Obi Friends. Just finished, and again, they absolutely nailed it. Loving the extra touches on Rio's relationship with the people around him. I think the look on his face and him touching the band-aid all the time definitely still points to the vengeance being part of his drive. It's the thing that he doesn't say out loud. I'm sure somebody will soon call him out on this. Is this about clearing your father's name or getting revenge, is the quotes he's put here. It's a great narrative decision, as clearing his father's name wouldn't require going after Landy, but we know he will pivot to chasing after him soon. Awesome stuff, and I'm a fanboy, of course, but this show is still a 10 to me.
Great stuff, guys. So if you want to leave your own comment over on the Shenmue Dojo forums, go do it after an episode has aired, and we'll try our best to read them out on the show. I think it's nice to get that extra perspective on things from different people. A lot of people are loving the Shenmue 3 characters there that we're seeing there, which is cool. And that's basically it for another week, guys. So thanks so much for tuning in. If you're listening to us live over on Radio Sega now, or perhaps you're watching us live on the Shenmue Dojo YouTube premiere, or just listening to us on your podcast catcher of choice, it's very much appreciated. So again, join us this coming Sunday, 27th of February at 6 p.m. for a bumper stream for Special Effect Game Blast 2022. We are Team Radio Sega, and then, like Matt said, we'll be jumping straight into our live watch-along of Episode 4 too. So until then, take care and come back in one piece.
Take care, everyone.
Ah, look at the time.